One of the first games that I featured on my channel is a survival game that's so unique, it is ingrained in my grey matter. It has to be one of the most tense and atmospheric extraction shooters that I have ever played, even if it is rougher than wiping my ass with sandpaper. Come with me while I take another look at... What's up, you beautiful beasts, and welcome to a brand new video where we're going to be taking a look at one of the most unique games I have ever played. In Forever Winter, you are a rat. You're not a hero. You're not a soldier. You are just a scavenger caught in a war that has been raging for so long, nobody remembers why. Originally coming out on Steam Early Access in October 2024, my small Discord community and I were beyond excited for Forever Winter. This game looked nothing like we'd seen before, and I could not wait to jump in. And what we were met with was horrific for a few different reasons. First off, dropping into a war-torn world where we could barely put up a fight was incredible. You truly felt insignificant and had to creep and crawl your way through hostile territories just to find a bucket of water. And the moment you were caught, combat felt properly life or death, having to abandon the odd party member just so you could survive. I only played 3 or 4 rounds, but it left a lasting memory. The other side of that coin, however, was a buggy mess that could barely run for a few of us. I tried streaming it, and my PC completely collapsed. Of course, I, unlike many, understand that early access games aren't always ready to rumble, but I loved the vision and wanted to see it through, so I kept my copy and watched for updates. It's been a full year since I last played Forever Winter, and it's gone through several updates, so for its early access birthday, I thought, why not take another look? What you're watching is gameplay of my first run back after a year, and I have to admit I was surprised at just how much better the game ran, as I was able to slap everything on the highest settings without issue. To begin, let's start with the positive. The aesthetics of the game, the visuals, the themes, the identity are phenomenal. I could spend an entire day glazing how all the environments, characters, and enemies paint an utterly dystopian visual that I cannot compare to any other game, and that is one massive fucking accomplishment in 2025. The gameplay loop and tense atmosphere completely reinvent the wheel for the extraction shooter genre. It is a harrowing experience of survival and caution that actually feels closer to a survival horror than it does an extraction shooter. Back when I played it originally, you would select one of several maps to load into and complete a raid, but now you choose which extraction point you want to begin at. This can lead to an excellent adventure. Starting in the tunnels where your base is located, you have to creep through the underbelly before emerging into one of the areas on the surface. Once you're on the surface, there's a good number of variations from time of day to areas, biomes, and which warring factions are on them. And it's weird going from games where you're something of a badass, no matter what, to being nothing. There are tanks, mechs, drones, and entire squads of enemies rolling about, and you can do absolutely nothing but avoid them. You can take out the odd lone soldier, maybe a bit more the later into the game you get, but to begin with, stealth is a must, and it is one hell of an experience at first. Unfortunately, this is where my glazing of this game's nuts must come to a bitter, salty end. With all the kind things that I have to say about this game's world building, design, and original ideas, they are all sadly undermined by wonky AI, iffy terrain, poor sound, and unfortunately, an awful player experience. Just to get this out there, there's no ability for me to reset my account, meaning if there's a tutorial or new player experience, I have no idea. There's an option for a tutorial in the start menu, but it doesn't seem to connect to the main game. Suddenly, there's a whole bunch of menus and buttons and alerts and stuff to click through, and it's incredibly discouraging just sort of bumbling around it and hoping you've the correct equipment or ticked the right boxes. The starting area has had some additions and it's always looked post-apocalyptically awesome. So I'm glad they've not done away with any of that, but instead built onto it. There's reason to explore your little home base before heading out, and I'm glad because, as anyone knows, I love a little home base. Anyway, I eventually clicked the right buttons and saw myself heading out into a mission. I'd taken some quests and off I fought into the dark tunnels. Immediately, things went wrong, bumping straight into two drones who showcased that the gunplay is serviceable. There was a brief fight, which I came out on top of before heading up. On a related note, with the game so gritty, I hope they overhaul the medical system so I don't just press a singular button and then watch my character neck a bottle of pills like an addict's wet dream. Shortly after the drone, I ran into a squad of soldiers doing laps. I think this is what I'm talking about when I say wonky AI. I'm not entirely sure what they were doing, but it was odd. Regardless, I tiptoed around them, filling my pockets with anything that wasn't bolted down, and I found myself with a full backpack in literally minutes. For a dystopian future, these dark tunnels seemed better equipped medically than the entirety of the NHS. Moving on, the bugs continue to make themselves known, from oddly floating placeables to weird animation loops and so forth. But, and this will be a crutch I use often for this game, it is early access. When it comes to early access, little things like that are forgivable. Early access games miss the spit and polish that fully released games do, so I'm willing to let that slide. Pushing forward, I arrived at the next map, which was outside, and I was immediately met with two more NPCs who I introduced to the business end of my shotgun. I found myself thrown straight back into the atmosphere once again as I began to forget the rough edges. Seeing the armies clash, watching billowing smoke from wrecks, and hearing gunfire all around me, and knowing I had no part in this was such a strange feeling. Going from things like Helldivers, where I'm a walking, talking nuke delivery system, to a man who was concerned about fighting two guards is such a strange experience, and it will never not be impactful. More looting, more creeping, and more watching as I slowly made my way through the lands, finding water and knowing I could now return to base and begin building my reserves. In Forever Winter, there's no map, only a compass, so you have to navigate by what you can see, and again, this is a feature I quite enjoy. Perhaps I'm a bit of a masochist, but having to rely on wits and a half-decent sense of direction is part of the fun for me. Unfortunately, war-torn ruins in a video game aren't the greatest at making you aware of where you can and cannot go when it comes to geometry, and the guy with the yellow paint seemingly hasn't found this game yet. As I found myself getting stuck hovering for a good few minutes, after a sinking moment where I thought this was GG, I managed to get free. Little did I know, my death would come at the hand of something far different. Making my way towards the extract, I crossed a giant ravine, and again, this game drilled home the fantastic visuals, making me feel utterly tiny. And that was before I was stopped in my tracks before a large number of enemies. There's no way these would be hard enemies, right? Camping an extract? That'd be stupid, I thought, loading my shotgun, as I was quickly shown that, in fact, I was the stupid one. Doing my best to clear my exit, I actually thought I could be in with a chance until I got absolutely lit the fuck up by a drone I'd not seen, who killed me in record time and then stole my corpse. Bastard. And that was that. A 30-minute venture ended because AI enemies were camping the exit. Now, admittedly, I lost because of my own stubbornness and inexperience, but the sour note for me was that this entire experience, from the moment I loaded into the home base to this death, I felt lost. Not a little lost, but utterly and hopelessly. No signal in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. Lost. I got huge stacks of loot within the first 10 minutes of loading into the tunnels, which made the idea of pushing forward seem like a contradiction to what I was supposed to be doing. But turning around felt wrong. I felt I was both supposed to fight, but also not fight. Exploring was rewarded with more containers to search, but also the sinking feeling of getting stuck in geometry, and the horrific sounds of war were undermined by watching the AI run laps aimlessly. So in the end, I Alt F4'd. Forever Winter is a beautiful, mess. In its current state, it still stands head and shoulders above many extraction shooters and even survival horror games as one of the most unique experiences I have ever played. The art will never not be impactful and amazing, harrowing and dystopian. The gameplay loop is exactly what we want from games like this, without needing to be concerned about some dick sat in a bush the entire raid waiting for you. There is so much phenomenal promise here, but right now you need to dig for it. You need to grin and bear the issues and problems, bugs and warts, and maybe you'll squeeze some fun out of the game every now and then. Personally, I'd keep watching, waiting, and most importantly, supporting Fun Dog Studios. I, for one, am happy to wait until it's ready. Thank you for joining me on this return to Forever Winter. Have you tried it? Have you been back? And what did you think? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, please like and subscribe. It massively helps the channel out and makes me know that you like my content. So again, thank you very much for being here. Have a good one, and I'll see you again soon.
I've been drinking Kool-Aid cameras like I did when I was 9, 'cause I like to pretend that I haven't lost the time. In the end, the nostalgia, though it tastes fine, I can only drink a couple 'cause it feels like a lie.